Hey, everybody. Welcome to Paratruth Radio right here on Blog Talk Radio at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. My name's Justin. Unfortunately, Eric is out today. He just moved to the new college to go to school for cinematography, so I wish him the best of luck with getting his place set up, and we'll welcome him back next week. For those of you that are followers of us on Blog Talk or on any of our Facebook and Twitter pages, welcome. If you do not follow us on Twitter or Facebook, please go follow us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter. That's where you will find any of the news that's going on here with Paratruth Radio. Today, we've got a giveaway going on for our Eddie the Bigfoot Paratruth Radio decorative plate. So I'm hoping that we can get that given away today as well. And also to just give you guys some information too, if you guys ever need to contact us outside of the live shows, you can always chat us up on on Facebook, also on Twitter. Email is paratruthradio@gmail.com. If you'd like to call in during the live shows, our guest call-in is 914-205-5558, and that's so that way you guys can ask questions to us or to our guests. We also have our chat room open as well, so you can ask questions that way. So a lot of great things going on here on Paratruth Radio. And again, I am flying solo, so just bear with me here. I'm a little off because of that. Trying to think if there's any other announcements that I have here. I don't think so. Just to give a heads up for next week's show, next week we'll be having on Sublimely Elegant from YouTube, and we will be doing a collaborative show with him as a special co-host. And I think that's about it that I can think of. Tonight we have on Chris Obrien, author of Stalking the Herd. Chris, are you there?
Yep, I'm here. Hey, Justin.
Thank you for being on the show, sir.
Yeah, I'm sorry we had a little problem on the last go-around, but hey, here we are, and there you go.
The listeners out there that haven't heard of you or heard of the book, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Wow. I've been involved in investigating and researching paranormal subjects since I was a little kid, but in terms of writing articles, writing books, that sort of thing, about 21 years. I got my start in the San Luis Valley in Colorado, south central Colorado. It's the largest alpine valley in the world. And I moved there from back east in 89. And in 92, while writing for a small town newspaper in Crestone, the little town I lived in, I started covering a series of UFO sightings that were occurring that all sorts of good quality witnesses were, seeing and talking about. So, I figured, hey, why not write a little article about this? And I did. And it got picked up by the wire services, Lou Ferris's UFO news clipping service, and it went around the world, and I was on national TV 2 months later. Go figure. Yeah. So ever since then, I've been involved in documenting any number of hundreds and hundreds of unexplained events, cryptozoological creature sightings, UFOs, a couple of hundred cattle mutilation reports during the 90s, which my book Stalking the Herd talks about partially, but the whole cattle mutilation phenomenon is covered in the book. But, for 20 years I've been, quietly, I think, for the most part, hopefully doing good field investigative work and networking with people that are a lot more expert and experienced than I am in the field. And, I think I really come to the point where I was getting sick and tired of hearing anytime the subject of cattle mutilations came up, everybody said, oh, yeah, the aliens are coming down and doing that. And based on my experience, I didn't feel that was a proper analysis of the situation. And I went ahead and gathered together all the existing databases and for the first time coalesced them together and put them all in one book, along with a history of our relationship with cattle. And Stalking the Herd is pretty much a one-stop shop for this, unexplained livestock death mystery. And I'm pretty proud of it. And it's 500,000 words. It took 18 months to write, and my butt's sore from sitting in the chair.
Yeah, I bet. Well, and one of the less talked about phenomenons is the cattle mutilation, just because I guess it's a little bit of a taboo thing because nobody really knows what is going on or what's happening with it. Now, in the beginning of the book, you had said that you had a personal cattle mutilation story happen close to you, correct?
I had dozens, for that time period between November 92 through about 1999. So, we're looking at about 7 years. I investigated or helped investigate and research over 200 cases.
Okay. And then,
yeah, I had one. I had one just half a mile away from me. I think was the closest one that actually may have occurred. They tried to cover it up, but I had corroborative, data to support that particular case, although it never officially made my data log.
Okay, and in the book you said that you were a suspect in the mutilation, or one of them?
No, my mentor, David Perkins, back in '75. He lived up and over the Sangre de Cristo Mountains, which the little town I lived in was right on the west side of the mountains. He lived on the other side, on the east side, and he had, of course, been reading in the mid-'70s. It was the '75. It was the AP news story of the year in Colorado. There were, possibly thousands of cases that occurred on the Front Range of Colorado in the mid-'70s. But he started looking into it, and he was driving home, and he saw right outside the gates of his property there was a mutilated cow, and he was like freaked out. And he went home and started making some phone calls and went down to the newspaper office and said, hey, there was a mutilated cow there. And they said, yeah, well, the sheriff wants to talk to you because you're the chief suspect.
Oh.
So, yeah, go figure. No, that was '75, and that was David Perkins, my mentor. He's helping me write the follow-up book to Stalking the Herd.
Oh, okay. Now, one of the cases that interested me was Snippy the horse. What was going on with that, or what could have caused that particular mutilation with Snippy?
Well, I don't know. It could have been high-tech chefs coming back from the future to gather illegal parts from animals that aren't supposed to be eaten, bring them back to the future for $1 million a plate dinners. That makes more sense to me than aliens coming down and doing it. Or at the time, September '67, when the case occurred, people thought maybe it was the military. First of all, the Snippy case is really important. It's like Typhoid Mary. If anyone out there is into epidemiology and pandemic outbreaks of disease, if you want to equate the first mass, known or international, publicized case of this type,
correct,
of an unexplained livestock death, Snippy would be the Typhoid Mary. And the animal was discovered missing all the tissue from the tip of its nose to the shoulder area, so its entire neck and skull was devoid of any flesh, hide, muscle, tissue, connective tissue. The brain was gone with no break into the cranium, with a dry brain case. The upper respiratory organs and the heart were gone. It just freaked the family out that discovered the horse. And this was, of course, right there in the height of the Summer of Love, September 7th, 1967. Mm-hmm. And initially, the sheriff, he didn't even go out to see it. He says, the horse was hit by lightning. There was no storms in the area the night that it happened. And lightning can do some pretty amazing things. It can blow the hoof material off cows. It can create pretty horrific burns. I've seen it. But the Snippy case was not your typical lightning strike. The bones
Right.
were bleached white, like they'd been in the sun for 30 years in the desert. There was a kind of a strange medicinal sort of odor around the animal. The animal was found about 100 feet from where its tracks ended. There were a lot of very peculiar things about the case that we still, to this day, have not, really figured it out. So, what did the Snippy case? I don't know. According to the locals, it was some kids from Alamosa that dipped it into a vat of acid, was one theory. Another theory was that it was all, done by scavengers in a matter of just a few hours, which none of these mundane explanations make any sense and cannot be supported by the facts.
If it was scavengers, you would think that the skull would have been completely broken open, and especially since the skull was clean on the inside.
Well, scavengers typically don't open skulls. We're talking about blunt force trauma that would take to break the skull. The fact that the animal was given a complete in-the-field necropsy by a resident doctor up from Denver, John Altshuler, who years later came out and admitted he was the one that did the examination. He was so freaked out by the case, he vowed never to return back to the San Luis Valley again, and he didn't until, I think, 1996 or 95. He came down and flew down there with Timothy Good, the famous, author and investigator researcher. Mm-hmm. But that's a whole other story. The Snippy case is the first internationally publicized case of this type. Reporters from China, France, South America, all over Europe contacted the ranch and family, asked for more information. As you know, in the book, quite a number of full-length interviews were done. I was able to actually interview the husband of the owner of the horse, Burl Lewis. I did an hour-and-a-half interview on video with him. So, it's still a perplexing case, and I really felt that it deserved the amount of attention I gave it in the book.
Now, in the book, too, you mentioned that mutilations of this particular, not the Snippy case, but cow mutilations in general have been happening before the 60s, 70s, 80s boom of it, dating all the way back to the 1800s, correct?
1600s is the earliest time that in 1605, 1606, hundreds of sheep were being mutilated around London during the reign of James I. And that's our first real written documentation that we have of a wave of animal, livestock, unexplained livestock death cases. The sentence at the end of the entry into the court records is very interesting. It says, "Most would agree that it tendeth toward fireworks. Sundry conjectures, most would agree it tendeth toward fireworks," is the way the entry ends, which is, in the 21st century is open to some pretty interesting interpretations. But for the people that think this is all government conspiracy, black helicopters coming down and doing this, this has been reported. We had cases in Ireland in the early 1800s, cases in England, in the late 1800s into the 20th century, in the early 20th century of cases from Australia. If you really do some digging, you'll find that there's been quite a number of these outbreaks, all in Christian countries, I might add, in Western countries for the most part. You'll never find a single mutilation case from India, and the sacred cows of India, the Brahma, which are found all over the world, but they're from India. I have not been able to find a single case of a Brahma mutilation out of thousands and thousands of case reports. Wow. So, there are some clues there.
And this particular subject has fascinated me since I was a kid, because at first I was thinking, well, yeah, aliens, just because of the type of descriptions they would give, but
Right. Why don't you give your audience a thumbnail sketch of what a cattle mutilation is? Tell everybody exactly what we're talking about.
Well, from my understanding, cattle mutilations were sexual organs removed, actual carcasses cut open and certain organs removed. In the Snippy case, the head was completely stripped off of the bone, and I believe several of the cattle mutilations were the same way. What else am I missing from that?
Well, let's put it this way. The classic mutilation, by definition, is an animal that's discovered dead for no reason.
Okay.
They can't ascertain why it died. There are no signs of what killed it and disfigured it. In other words, there's no tracks, there's no physical crime scene evidence. And the animal, typically, in a classic sense, is found missing its tongue from deep within its throat, and the mandible flesh on the upward part of the jaw is cleanly excised, like it's been cut with a sharp implement.
Mm-hmm.
And oftentimes, as you pointed out, the sexual organs are gone, or the reproductive tract in a cow, the sexual organs of a bull are gone. Occasionally, oftentimes an eye, an ear is gone. The mammary glands, the udders of the cow has been cleanly excised. Sometimes there's a patch of flesh that's cut out in a perfect circle or oval, sometimes a square. A few cases, even a triangle of flesh has been taken. Generally, animals won't approach the carcass until humans have introduced their scent to the crime scene, and then you might have birds land on it, coyotes, and obviously insects, blowfly larvae, maggots, then do their thing. So that's a classic case. There are variations on the theme. The Snippy case was atypical. We've never had another case like it. And it's funny how you have an atypical case that happened to a horse is often described as the first cattle mutilation that was publicized. So there's this weird kind of juxtaposition of cow for horse throughout this whole mystery.
Right. Well, I think we'll take our first break. Folks, you're listening to Paratruth Radio right here on Blog Talk Radio. I am interviewing Chris Obrien, author of Stalking the Herd. Stay tuned for the giveaway for the decorative plate. We're going to have Eric's Random Fact of the Day and some music, and we'll be right back.
Now, Eric's Random Fact of the Day.
Many strange things have been documented throughout history, but one of the most common is the activity in the Bermuda Triangle. On December 5, 1945, 5 military planes flew out over the Bermuda for a training exercise. However, after flying nearly 225 miles, the planes vanished from radar, and the crew and planes were never found. Did you know that there is another triangle known as the Dragon's Triangle? Located 100 kilometers south of Tokyo, it too is a hotspot for plane and boat disappearances. What's more odd, if you were to draw a straight line from the center of the Dragon's Triangle, it would connect to the center of the Bermuda Triangle, causing some to believe the triangles to be a wormhole.
This is Eric's Random Fact of the Day.
All right, folks, welcome back to Paratruth Radio right here on Blog Talk Radio. I am talking to Chris Obrien, author of Stalking the Herd. Chris, are you still with me?
I am indeed.
All right, Chris, one question I have from my chat room here is it usually cows for the mutilations?
Yes. I think a sizable percentage, 90% possibly, are cattle. But horses, bison, elk, deer, sheep, goats, pigs. I even had a flattened porcupine in a in one case. I had a case where the coyote was mutilated, laying right next to a cow that was mutilated. So any warm-blooded grazing animal or livestock, could be a victim. Even people have been found in mutilated condition. Of course, those cases are extremely disturbing and, covered up, I think, for the most part by law enforcement. We don't have much documentation about claims of human mutilations, but, hey, in Africa, they mutilate people probably on a daily basis. There's parts of the world where, the ritual sacrifice of animals is practiced daily. So, it's mostly cattle, but, pretty much any other warm-blooded animal that is an herbivore. Very rarely have we had cases where carnivores have been, predators or scavengers have been found in a mutilated condition.
Okay. Now, in your opinion, other than extraterrestrials, what is your opinion on what is doing this? Are there still mutilations going on to this day as to how we could define that?
Yeah, since 2002, there have been several thousand, upwards of 3,000 cases reported down in South America. There's been an ongoing wave that's ebbed and flowed for the past 12 years down there. We've had, I just had a case about a month and a half ago, 6 weeks ago, up in Montana on the Cree Indian Reservation. We've had some fairly recent cases within the last month, 5 weeks in Missouri. These cases happen. They don't often, get national media attention, and
right.
Possibly, local news sources will talk about them. And it's only when you have a series of cases that the regional media picks up on it. And if that, wave of cases continues, then the national and international media will, pick up on it. Cattle are an important protein source for humans. There are 1.37 billion cattle on the planet. That's 1.33 billion head of cattle. They're the largest source of the creation of deserts, the largest source of freshwater pollution. The main reason why we're cutting down the rainforest is to make room for more cattle. And cattle farts and burps create more methane gas, which is a depleting gas, than any other natural source, than possibly, the permafrost now is with climate change and the planet seeming to warm up. It's allowing the permafrost to release methane into the air. Termites create a lot of methane. They're up there, probably number one in terms of an animal or insect that creates methane. But the bottom line is, besides humans, cattle are probably the most detrimental life form on this planet in terms of degrading the environment. And since 1975, when we saw the height of the number of cattle in North America, just taking, our continent as an example,
right.
Since 1975, we've seen a decline in the average consumption per capita of beef, and we've also seen a slow decline in the number of mutilations. It's almost like when cattle reached a certain threshold, in the environment, then the mutilations almost acted like a control thermostat. All of a sudden, boom, mutilations really started happening. And whether by accident or by rote, the number of mutilations have descended and curtailed as we have less livestock in the environment. and less, beef being eaten by people. You have to understand, 80% of the antibiotics used in this country go into cattle. A high percentage, well over half the growth hormones used by humans in North America go into cattle. We're now stuffing these animals by the tens of thousands into highly unsanitary conditions in feedlots.
Right.
We're pumping them full of growth hormones to make them, grow faster. And because they're living in filth, we have to pump them full of antibiotics to keep them healthy. We're on average, to gain 400 pounds of weight before a head of livestock gets slaughtered, we give it as much as 1,600 pounds of grain. Grain is not, cattle aren't designed to eat grain. They're designed to eat grass. That's why they have four stomachs and they're ungulates. Anyway, in answer to your question, it's really complex. There is no one-size-fits-all answer. Everybody loves it when you can just say, that's the perpetrator. That's, that's the boogeyman right there. It doesn't work that way in this particular mystery. There's multiple groups piggybacking their agendas and using various techniques to perpetrate these crimes, which appear to be a form of environmental monitoring. It's not so much the particular head of livestock that's targeted. It's where it is in the environment that's important. And my book goes into great detail looking at the environmental monitoring theory, which is the only theory that really has the most sticking power. ETs, the government, various hoaxers, Satanists, occultists, these are all theories that have been, kind of thrown out there over the years. But the environmental monitoring theory seems to be the one that sticks the best.
Now, would it be the government monitoring that, or somebody like a group of people maybe monitoring that to make sure that it's not becoming a problem?
Well, it depends on what you mean by what is becoming a problem. If you're talking about mad cow disease and transmissible spongiform encephalopathy, just the most debilitating disease known to man, Ebola is pretty bad, but at least some people survive. If you get TSE or transmissible spongiform encephalopathy, you die. It's 100% fatal. So, it's called mad cow disease in cows, but it's called scrapie in sheep. It's called chronic wasting disease in deer and elk. It's called Creutzfeldt-Jakob's disease and its variants. There's a variant Creutzfeldt-Jakob's. There's new variant Creutzfeldt-Jakob's. These are all misfolded proteins that are able to cause other proteins to misfold. Proteins don't even have nucleotides. They're so small that they're 1,000 times smaller than the smallest virus, which used to be considered the smallest life form known, detected by man. But these misfolded proteins are able to replicate and cause other proteins to misfold. The end result is that you develop these holes like a Swiss cheese in your brain and nerve tissue, and you develop symptoms like dementia, you twitch out, lose your memory, and at the end, usually your body forgets to remind itself it has to breathe, and most people die of pneumonia or other, invasive infections, opportunistic infections, but monitoring the spread of mad cow disease, I think, is a really interesting and possibly important avenue that researchers and investigators should be going down.
Well, in the case
when was the last time you had a hamburger at a fast food joint?
Probably last week.
Right. You know how many parts of how many different cattle could be in that one burger? Do you have any idea?
Not
even. Do you realize, you wonder why 9-year-old girls are going into puberty?
Oh, I absolutely know why, because they're pumping.
Why? Why is that, Justin? Why are 9-year-old girls going into puberty? And it ain't watching, Lindsay Lohan on TV or Kim Kardashian. It's all the growth hormones we're sticking into the beef.
Yep.
So, I get a little kind of ironic and cynical when it comes to looking at this subject sometimes because, if anyone in the listening audience, I eat beef, but I know where it comes from. It's grass-fed, it's free-range, it's local. I don't eat fast food, hamburgers, or I try my darndest, and I'm not always successful. I try not to eat processed meat with ammonia slime and all these fillers and
Right.
growth hormones and antibiotics and all this stuff. So, if you want my honest appraisal of the situation, there's a possibility that these transmissible spongiform encephalopathy diseases may have been some sort of program that got loose, some sort of quasi-governmental group, health group, whatever, maybe some sort of development of defense against, biological weapons that got loose into the environment. The book goes into quite a bit of detail, tracing the various theories that have been proposed over the years. All of them have some data to support them, but there's way more data to refute them all. The only one that stands head and shoulders above the other explanations is some sort of environmental monitoring program going on.
Okay. Well, that's kind of where I was going with your particular opinion on what is actually causing this, because there are, as you said, hundreds of theories as what is happening.
No, there's not hundreds of theories. There's only 3 or 4 or 5, but they all have their permutations.
Right, yeah. All right, we're going to take another quick break. I'm going to get to the giveaway here, guys. So as soon as the break hits, we're opening up our lines, 914-205-5558, and you get to win the Eddie the Bigfoot decorative plate. And if you ever have any questions for me or the guest, you can call that number or put them in our chat line, and we'll be back in just a few minutes. Start hitting that line.
Hello everybody, Sublimely Elegant here as always, and guess what? I know you. Well, no, we've never met, but I do know you. I know you love Minecraft. I know you love the internet. Now I also happen to know you love colorful language. So instead of moping around all day, why don't you head on over to my channel and satiate your deepest needs. YouTube.com/Sublimely Elegant.
All right, folks, welcome back to Paratruth Radio. The game over sound means that I did not have a winner for the decorative plate, so we will give that away again next week. So keep tuned in to our Facebook page, our Twitter page to get all that information on how to win that. And also, we are getting close to the end, but if you have any last questions for my guest here, the guest call-in number is 914-205-55. We also have our chat line open. My guest today has been Chris Obrien, author of Stalking the Herd. Chris, you're still with me?
I am. What was that theme music? It sounded like Super Duper Mario Brothers.
That's aging myself because that's from when I was a child. So
yeah, that was a little disconcerting.
All right. Well, since we're getting close to the end here, I wanted to give you a chance to tell everybody where they can find you, find your book, find your research, all that good stuff.
Well, all you have to do is Google me, and there'll be on quite a number of pages that'll come up. I do have a website. It's OurStrangePlanet.com. It is a strange planet. It's OurStrangePlanet.com. And, of course, I am the co-host of the Paracast, which is a radio show many consider to be the 60 Minutes of the Paranormal. We ask tough questions and demand proof for extraordinary claims. And we've been going since 2006. And go to the Paracast, Paracast.com, and sign up on our forums. We have a great forum community, a lot of smart people up there. Every time I tune in, I learn something. There's all sorts of scientists and engineers and doctors and spooky types and all sorts that are on there. And if you want to get my book, go to stalkingtheherd.com. One word, stalkingtheherd.com. I'll sign it and number it for you.
All right. And anything last to add on the subject before you go?
Well, I think it's important for everybody to understand, sitting in your armchair, only can take you so far, surfing on the net, watching TV, reading books. I think the real important work is where the rubber meets the road. I put 300,000 miles on my truck in 6 years. I was in a position where I was able to do the kind of legwork that it takes to log the miles, log the data, interview the particular individuals involved in cases. If you have any sort of free time and you are in an area that has, unusual reports of UFOs, crypto creatures, livestock death, unexplained livestock death cases, good haunted sites, get out there and do the work, but don't take the TV personalities that you see as your model. Really learn how to do proper investigative work, how to interview people without using leading questions, write everything down, keep an accurate journal or log of your investigative efforts. It's really important that we pass the baton. I'm 57 years old. I got involved rather late, when I was in my mid-30s. But I was very fortunate to have some really top-notch researcher, investigator types take me under their wing, train me how to properly be an investigator. And I spent, I've spent the better part of 20 years out in the field when cases warranted my investigation. So, it's important to really do your work and pick and choose your sources for intellectual knowledge, pick them carefully. And for God's sake, people, don't believe that everything you see on TV is true, because it's
right.
I mean, I've caught some of the the History Channel in one documentary claimed that the Maya went extinct in the 1300s, failing to tell everybody that the has the largest group of indigenous Americans. There's 4 million
Right.
Maya. So, you really have to be careful on getting yourself up to speed properly. And then once you're up to speed and you start doing some good research, write everything down. It's really important. The human brain can only remember so much. Write it down. Keep a big calendar. Write on the date and time, no matter how inconsequential the event. Write it down. When you look back at it in 6 months, you'll be amazed.
Well, I'm glad you bring up getting out there and doing the investigations, because me and Eric had a paranormal investigative group for a couple of years, and a lot of people think it's just like on the shows where something is going to happen every time, and that is absolutely not the case. They make you think that, unfortunately, but so I do
Exactly.
appreciate
Yeah.
that.
For every 100 hours that I go out sky watching, I may have 5 minutes of some real spectacular, amazing stuff. But that's 5 minutes out of 100 hours. You got to put the time in. I'm putting together a surveillance camera up in the San Luis Valley on cell towers and mountaintops, all coordinated. And it happens, triggers parameters, all the cameras swing around, detect motion, follow motion. So we need to take this to the next level. Technology is now available. We can do closed system, internet-based surveillance setups. These are the types of approaches that this up-and-coming generation really needs to start embracing. God, you guys, if I had the kind of technology that I have today, or access to, 20 years ago, when I did a cost analysis of setting up a surveillance setup in the San Luis Valley 20 years ago, it would have cost over $1 million. Now I can do it like $10,000. And that's top of the line stuff.
Right.
Not getting into FLIR, forward-looking infrared, blah, blah, blah. I mean, that drives the cost up. But to put high-def cameras that are protected within an environmental enclosure for heat and cold, you can put together, a triangulated 3-camera system for very little money. You can also have tri-field meters hooked up. You can have ELF detection equipment. I mean, passive radar. I mean, there's tons of things that creative individuals can do to help take that baton further down the field. I can only do, so much in my process. So,
Right.
It's up to you guys to take the ball and run with it. So there you go, dude.
All right, Chris, thank you so much for being on. I appreciate it, and I hope we have another chance to catch up and see where things are at for you.
Okay, well, things are always kind of cool on my side of the equator. I just need to get south of the equator, down to South America, and find out what the heck's been going on down there.
Right. All right. Well, I appreciate you being on the show, and I hope you have a very good evening.
Yeah, give my best to Eric, too, man. Thanks for having me on.
All right. Thank you. Bye-bye. All right, folks. That was Chris Obrien, author of Stalking the Herd. As he said, he also has a radio show, paracast.com, and you can also check out his website, ourstrangeplanet.com, and also check out stalkingtheherd.com to just get a glimpse at the book or purchase the book. You can also find the book on Amazon. That is where I had originally found it. So it's definitely a very good read, especially for those who are interested in the mutilation phenomenon. It definitely had piqued my interest when I was younger, but hadn't really researched it too much since then. And so I was glad to get Chris on and get his perspective on it, because as he said, everybody wants to blame UFOs, aliens, extraterrestrials, that sort of thing, and it seems like it's more of a close-to-home type phenomenon than it is a otherworldly phenomenon. And I do agree with what he said as well. Get out there, do some investigations. Don't put your life at risk, but do some research. You're the only way you're going to find out what is really going on out in the world is getting out there and doing footwork and doing that research. And keep a log, keep a notebook, have an audio recorder with you at all times. Anything you can do to document any type of phenomenon that is going on that you're researching, definitely get out there and do that. It's so worth the time and the effort, and it gets you out of the house and maybe a little bit of an adventure in your life. Who knows? So next week we will be having on Sublimely Elegant from YouTube. We'll be talking about werewolves. Eric will be back next week, and we will also be giving away that decorative plate once again, Eddie the Bigfoot. So please call in. Give us your input. Give us your expertise, if you will, and also call in and win this plate. It's very well done. I am very happy with it. Shelly did a very good job on it. So, folks, I won't see you. I will be talking to you next week, same time, right here on Blog Talk Radio. I'm Justin, and this has been Paratruth Radio.
Peace.